And so it is noon, so thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you, Laura, for joining us. I am Melissa Ralsted. I'm with the Wisconsin Museum of Quilts and Fiber Arts, and I am joined today by Laura Mitchell. Very excited to have you joining us today for the program. Laura is assumed the role of Executive Director of Visions Art Museum, which is in San Diego, in March of 2019, and prior to joining VAM, she was the Director of Institutional Advancement at Hong Kong Academy, an international baccalaureate school in Hong Kong. She has worked in the field of nonprofit management for more than 25 years, serving museums, schools, and other cultural organizations. She has a BA in economics from Pomona College and a PhD in history from Yale. And she lives in San Diego with her younger daughter and 2 dogs, and looks forward to the days until her older daughter returns home from college. So we're really excited to have you, and excited to be doing a program with a sister textile museum. Even if we're here in the Midwest, and even if you are all the way over on the West Coast, we're excited to have you join us today and find out a little bit more about Visions Art Museum. And for those of you who are joining us, if you have questions, you are welcome to post them in the chat. We are monitoring the chat, and we'll have a chance to ask those questions, so feel free to type those questions in. If you're watching us on Facebook, feel free to type the questions right into Facebook. We're monitoring that too, and we will be sure to get to any questions that you might have. And the programs are free. Laura was kind enough to do this at no charge for us. So we do appreciate donations for this. It helps to keep the programs going. For those of you that joined us a little earlier, Laura and I were chatting about some of the challenges of operating museums in the middle of a pandemic. And donations like that actually help to keep the organizations going. So they're very much appreciated. And we will be posting links in the chat to the donation pages. But with that, I will turn it over to Laura. So tell us more about the Visions Art Museum.
Oh, well, Melissa, thank you for those kind words. And I'll share the screen over to my presentation in a minute, but I do want to say, support your local quilt and textile museum. Do make a donation, and I'm delighted to be here. Wouldn't think about charging for this. I'm just thrilled to be able to meet you all and tell you a little bit about Visions, and thank you for this opportunity. So I'm going to share my screen now. And Melissa, can you confirm that this looks the way it ought to look?
You are good.
Good, thank you. Well, welcome again, and thank you for this opportunity. As Melissa said, I'm Laura, and I'm from Visions Art Museum in San Diego. And what you're looking at here on the side is a detail from Betty Busby's mycology. I'm sure that most of you are familiar with Betty's wonderful work, and this is a quilt that we had the privilege of displaying several years ago. And I love to use it for my sidebar. Let's just go there. Just want to give you a brief history of Visions Art Museum. And Melissa and I have chatted a number of times about the parallels. I'm sorry, it went too far. Between the parallels between Visions Art Museum and your museum, and I think there's some parallels in our future as well. Visions was started in 1985 really as a biennial juried art show. It was a group of art quilters in San Diego that decided that they wanted to have a public opportunity to share their art, but also to further the medium itself and to educate the public about art quilting as fine art. That exhibition grew over time and was exhibited in a number of different places. And then finally in 2007, so more than 20 years after that biennial exhibition began, the museum finally had a physical home, and we opened our doors as a museum in Liberty Station. Liberty Station is, for those of you who haven't been to San Diego, it's pretty near the airport. And it was an old naval base. It was the Naval Training Center, and that was decommissioned and then turned over to the city for redevelopment. And part of the redevelopment was an arts district, and we became an anchor institution in that arts district. It was still run largely by volunteers at that point, and only in 2010 did the museum hire its first paid director. And then in 2016, we received a large bequest from a woman named Jill LeQuisette. And I note that in our timeline because it was a game changer for our museum to have a significant legacy fund that we treat as an endowment and that allows us to plan for the future in a whole new way. And then I arrived in 2019 and we began reflecting on our past and thinking about our next 10 to 20 years and with a new strategic plan. And that's where we find ourselves today. The pandemic was nowhere near in our plans for 2020, but we are responding to that. The mission of the museum is quite simple, to create a community and to exhibit and share programming about quilting as fine art. What came out of our strategic planning process, though, was a little bit different. We decided to add a vision and a values statement to our mission. And the vision that we coalesced around quite quickly was the idea of being a mecca for quilt, textile, and fiber artists. That place where you just definitely want to go, and where you'll find other like-minded people who want to learn and want to share and want to view the quilt and textile and fiber art. And we also adopted a values statement of beauty, artistry, community, inclusion, and joy. Inclusion is a big one for us. Our museum is, at this point, frankly, it skews like the museum community around the world. We are older and we are fairer skinned. And we are looking intentionally to include communities that have not been represented at the museum. And then we have the word joy there because honestly, if we're not having a good time, why are we doing it? Art should be about joy. Just a quick snapshot. We are free admission, which is significant for us because until a year ago, we were not. But about a year ago, we made a fairly radical decision to stop charging admission for the museum and to artfully place donation boxes in various places and to push out more on the philanthropic side. And through March of this year, it was working just fine. We were actually taking in more money through our donation boxes than we were through, what we had been taking in from admission fees. So I still think it's a good model for us, but as you can imagine, these days we've been largely closed since March and only 25% open in recent weeks, and we are likely to be shut down again fairly soon. So it's just interesting times. In a normal year, more than 22,000 people. I think in 2019, we were more closer to 25. We have about 700 members. We do exhibitions that are both on-site and virtual. We instituted a gallery called the Spotlight Gallery in the last year, which is specifically for opportunities that come up maybe at the last minute. Or an opportunity to highlight something from the community that we might not otherwise get into a curated show in the main galleries. And then of course we have classes and workshops and tours and fun for all ages and skill levels. And we're on Facebook and on Instagram. And I would invite you to follow us there or to join our Facebook page. It would be wonderful to have you.
Laura, we've got a couple of questions.
Oh, sure.
One, before you guys decided to do away with admission, what were you charging?
Oh, before that, it was $7, free for children. And one of the benefits of membership was that you received, excuse me, a certain number of tickets a year. That you, well, as a member, you could come free, and then you received a certain number of tickets a year so that you could bring a friend or a family member with you as a part of your admission. So one of the most significant things that happened when we went for free admission was rethinking our entire membership model and what was going to be the benefit of membership if we, in effect, took away that particular benefit of membership. So we thought through that pretty long and hard before we effected this change. And now the primary benefits of membership for the museum involve opportunities for early bird registration, opportunities to attend certain events for free that we would charge the general public for, and reduced fees and discounts for other classes. So if it's $50 for someone in the public, it's $35 to a member, that sort of thing. So we've tried to create more programming value added for the members to offset the fact that admission is now free for all.
And then another one, where do your visitors come from? You know, you and I have chatted many times. You know, San Diego's really a tourist mecca. And so are you finding that your visitors are a lot of local repeats? Are they from all over?
We have a strong core of repeats, local artists and local aficionados, people who are our key volunteers and guild participants, and they might come 2-3 times in a year. But a good chunk of our visitors, a good chunk, well over half, would be people who've come from around the country and around the world. We are right in the heart of San Diego, very close to the airport. We get an astonishing number of people whose planes are delayed. They're making a connection, or they've gone to the airport and their plane's delayed, and someone at the airport concierge kindly says, well, go over to Liberty Station and check out Visions Art Museum. We get a lot of media tours from groups from around the country that are looking to, from around the world, who are looking to place stories in their local media about what to do when you come to San Diego. We get a lot of people from Arizona, Nevada, Northern California, so the regions right around us. So it's a real mix.
All right.
I don't, did that answer the question, Melissa?
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything else, or should I go on?
Nope, I'm sorry, you can go ahead and go on.
Okay,
the questions.
Good. Then I will move on. Visions Art Museum is a contemporary art museum. And as such, we do not have a large permanent collection, nor do we have collecting as a core part of our mission. We do collect, and we do receive donations of quilts that we accept based on significance in some way, shape, or form. So to round out our collection, if we don't have something from a particular artist or in a particular medium or a particular style, that sort of thing. But overall, we're more of a pass-through gallery where we show contemporary collections or contemporary artists, and that work moves on. But we do have a small permanent collection, and the center of gravity for that is an exhibition called Playing with a Full Deck. You'll see an example of one of the quilts from Full Deck to the side there. That is the King of Hearts. Playing with the Full Deck is 56 quilts, representing one quilt per card in a deck of cards. It was originally on display at the Renwick Gallery in Washington, D.C., which is a part of the Smithsonian. And it was curated with this idea in mind that that there were going to be X number of quilts, and the person who was organizing it reached out to the leading art quilters of the day and said, which deck of the card do you want? Or in some cases, assigned. It's a stunning, stunning exhibition, which we've now displayed at the museum 3 times since 2007, and then we've also had a chance to display it offsite once. So it cycles through our regular curatorial calendar. We received that because of the generosity of the Brackenseeks, who are quite well-known quilt collectors. You all may be aware of them. And then we also have other bequests. So I'd say total, our permanent collection is probably 120 quilts at the outside. We're in the process of inventorying it and assessing it and determining preferred storage for that collection. So I wish I had an absolute discrete number to give you, but we're actually still sorting that out. There's information on our website about past exhibitions. And we're also looking to develop some sort of interactive archive. Not there yet, but my dream would be that you'd be able to go to our website and see every exhibition that we've had in the past and just click through the images. Right now, you can do that for our current exhibitions, and you can do it for some things in the recent past. Key to the experience at Visions Art Museum is learning opportunities. We were founded by by and for art quilters and textile artists, but over the years we have become more of a museum for everyone who loves textile and fiber arts. So we do some programming that is really focused for artists themselves, and then some that's focused more for the general public. We had just begun a program called Van Voyage before the shutdown. So now we're moving into virtual Van Voyage, where we can go and visit places around California and around the world now virtually, and learn about museums and meet friends beyond our own borders. Right now, I'd say most of our programming is kind of just the lecture. It's kind of what we're doing now. It's a Zoom talk and a Zoom conversation. But we will eventually be back to introductory level classes and advanced classes that are in person and learning technique. And then we have a wonderful relationship with Liberty School, which is a program at Liberty Station where we reside, that reaches out to area elementary school students to teach them art techniques. It's a program that's trying to address the deficit in the public schools in San Diego for arts education. And so we had the joy, and we will again have the joy, of teaching children the basics of quilting. And so I am going to pause my presentation now, and I'm going to click this open for you and show you this video featuring our lead volunteer, Helen Ashdown. Let me see, I should be able to get this into full screen. There you go. And you'll see full deck on the walls behind it, Helen.
Children from different local elementary schools, and we bring them in, convince them that they are artists, and then allow them to create a self-portrait. I can do it.
I can do it.
I can have fun.
I can have fun.
I am an artist.
I am an artist.
And I am a
quilter.
That's right, he said it. He said quilter. So they start off by making a paper drawing of themselves. They will actually cut out fabric in all of the different shapes to make their face, their eyes, their nose, their mouth. And the final week, we bring in lots and lots of embellishment for them, buttons and bows and feathers and yarns, and they get to choose from the embellishments, and they learn how to do a quilt stitch first, and then they start adding embellishments. And it just makes it so much fun for them to be able to just be creative. And of course, they went from being artists on the first week, drawing their self-portrait, to being quilters on the final week by actually putting stitches on the quilts.
And the pom-pom, since I go to cheerleading, and the shirt, and an ice cream.
The quilts that these children just finished from Perkins Elementary School are going to be hanging here in the museum. So the children will be actual artists hanging in the museum. The plan is that after that, the quilts will go back to the children's school for a while. And then, if possible, some of the quilts will be taken to the quilt show here in San Diego this year, which would be a very big honor for the students to be hanging in a venue like that. Here's the good news. With quilting, there are no mistakes. We can do, I know, who likes that? We can do anything we want with our design. So you're gonna look at your face.
My favorite part is the hair, and just design. And I can sew and pin I never knew how to sew until now. I made another one.
Great, thank you. What is it? Makes me a little teary because it's been so long since we've had precious children like that in our museum, and we'll look forward to doing that again. With that particular school, it was a particularly powerful moment because 40% of those students are homeless. That presented a particular challenge for working with them and getting their quilts back to them. But what a privilege it was to share that, and we look forward to doing that again.
Laura, was that a program that you developed specifically with that school, or was it one that you applied to? I mean, you had this existing program and you worked with Perkins.
So we had a program like that in the past, and then we had this partnership opportunity through the Naval Training Center Foundation, which is the landlord or the manager of the Liberty Station Arts District where the museum is located. And they developed a program to reach out generally to San Diego public schools that included us, but then the Watercolor Society that's also on campus, they had a program. The dance studios had a program. There were maybe 5 or 6 different arts organizations in Liberty Station that participated through Liberty School. So we had a chance to do it. Well, we've replicated it many times now on a semester by semester basis. Until now, obviously, we've had to stop it. We've done this with 3rd graders, and it's mainly been portraits. Our plan for this year was we had a 4th and a 5th grade curriculum worked out as well. For 4th grade, because of the state of California curriculum requirements, we were looking at an environmental theme. And doing a lot of recycling and upcycling with quilting. And that was going to be very exciting. So we'll look forward to building that out, hopefully next year.
And we had one comment from one of the people watching just saying that they love the portraits the kids made and the message to them, keep it up, so good for the soul. Oh,
so great. You know, the first time the first time that this happened, when I was the new director, I was in my office and all the kids are coming in, and I was sitting there at my table or my desk at the computer, and I hear Helen say, "I am an artist." And I thought, oh my word, when I was 8 years old, no one ever said that to me. And how different life can be when we are empowering children to be artists. And she says lots of things that she says to encourage the kids that aren't on the screen, but that weren't in the video. And one of them I think is so important is that she talks about adaptability, flexibility, and resilience. And she said, what do artists do what do we do when we're artists and we have a problem? What do we do? Well, we just think about it, we fix it, and we tinker it, and we work with it, and we don't worry about a mistake. We just we just keep going, we keep trying, and we keep innovating. And I thought, oh my word, I mean, these sorts of life skills and mindsets are so important, and such a joy and a privilege to be a part of that.
And then how long is the class? So we had weeks.
Yeah. Sure. They go, the kids come 4 Fridays or 4 weeks in a row. It's always been on Fridays, but it wouldn't have to be, but they come 4 weeks in a row for 1 hour. And through the funding, through the grant is what pays for the buses and all the like to bring them. They come with their teachers. And then we have a core volunteer group of 20 to 30 who rotate, take different days. But we never have less than a 1 volunteer to every 2 student ratio. Each pair of students has at least 1 volunteer who's just sitting with them, helping them learn the project.
And I'd imagine your volunteers probably really love doing this too.
Oh my word. Oh my word. It's been so powerful and popular. And it's the sort of thing that people came on to volunteer with this project who then became members. They volunteered for this project and then became donors, not the other way around. This has been a wonderful way for us to engage a whole group of volunteers that we otherwise wouldn't have known.
Great.
If it's something that you think you'd be interested in, I can kitify it. You know, we've got documentation for it, and I'm happy to share that.
I think that would be great.
Well, this is what's on right now. We've got the three main exhibitions going on and 2 smaller ones. Judith Content is an internationally known shibori dyer and quilter. She's been featured in Craft in America. So if her name is familiar to you, that might be why. She's based in Palo Alto, and so kind of a local artist for us. And her exhibition is in our main gallery right now, which is the Del Thomas Gallery. You see an example of her work there to the left on the screen, but then also a view of part of the gallery. If you go on our website, you can see close-ups of all of her work. Absolutely stunning. You can see in this that she likes to play with the kimono shape. And then also in the immediate foreground are a series of works she calls Il Dulce. They're all old muffin tins that she's then worked with. So it looks like a confection that you want to eat. Secondly, right now we're showing the work of Melody Money, who is a Boulder, Colorado-based artist. And in this installation, which is on the smaller side, it's called Of Meadows and Blue Skies. And it's an immersive sort of exhibition. When you walk in, you immediately see the detail to the left is of her work Rain, which you see kind of at the center of the screen. It's the 3-paneled piece that almost looks like a drapery or hanging in the middle there. When you walk around that room, it really is like being in the meadow near her home in Boulder with the blue skies around you. And you can even see the birds that are flying up above. And when we have the air conditioning on in that room, the birds even fly a bit. It's quite lovely. It's just been a real privilege to walk into work every day and be soothed by her magnificent work. And again, her work is also on the website, and there's also a video about her work and her process. Thirdly, we have a small exhibition of the work of Terry McHale up, just 4 pieces. Terry is inspired by not just the environment, but also trash, detritus, and working with things that wash up on the shores here in San Diego, or that fall from trees, or that end up collecting because of wind. And she's also sculptural in her work, and has been experimenting a lot with starches and other stiffening agents to see what makes fabric solid, what makes it hold up as a sculptural element. So she's very interesting technically as well as aesthetically. There's also on our website, there's a PowerPoint presentation that goes more into detail about her work. What's on right now for us virtually is Quilt Visions. At the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned to you that we had our beginnings in a biennial juried exhibition called Quilt Visions. That's how we get our name, Visions Art Museum. And this year was another year for that juried exhibition. The full exhibition is online with Q&A with the artists, with additional bonus materials, videos, and the like from the artists. There is a catalog if you care to look at that. It's really our signature show, and this year it's 37 pieces of art, so I didn't include them all. Just this is Charlotte Ziebart's, and she's our cover girl. She made the catalog cover this year. And with Quilt Visions, we've been doing meet and greets with the artists. There's one more this afternoon that will start at 4 o'clock your time, which might be getting a little bit late. But if you go to our website under events and classes, you can see the link, and you can still register for that. That's free and open to the public.
Laura, if you share that link with us, we can post it on our Facebook page too. So if anybody wants to join and check it out, we can make sure to have that posted.
Oh, great. I'll put it in the chat. And then, thank you. We also have a lecture coming up in 2 weeks with Luana Rubin of eQuilter. You all may know eQuilter, and she's going to be talking about contemporary trends in quilting, including information about Quilt Visions. This exhibition, that's yours truly there in my casual wear and mask with a subtitle, Shibori Surfboard. These surfboards are bespoke by a company in Gardena, which is an area in Los Angeles, using traditional shibori silk dyeing methods, then applied to the surfboard and shellacked over and over. These are entirely functional surfboards. And I particularly love them because, you know, most of the art in the museum you can't touch. But these surfboards are intended to be touched. They can even go in the water. So we only have these on display through the 20th of November. And I'll be very sorry to see them go. And then lastly, we also have a really vibrant store. And you'll see up in the corner there, that's Spike, the fish. By Betty Busby. Spike is a bit of a mascot for us, but we have a wonderful retail presence where we focus primarily on consignment works by local fiber artists. We also have an online store that we invite you to look at too. And when you come, we'll look forward to having you at having you in the store. And then in terms of what's on, as I mentioned, we've got the artist meet and greets today, and Luana is on the 14th of November. And then we also have weekly to monthly, monthly or bi-monthly Stir Crazy challenges. Various members contribute their ideas for projects that you can do at home using largely what you may have at home. We started this in the spring when you couldn't get out to the stores and everything was selling out online, and people were trying to figure out what they could do just with what they had on hand. So it's kind of a fun upcycling, recycling challenge, as well as a project that you can do in a set amount of time, and that and often they're shareable with family members that may not be as skilled as you are as a quilter. So it's been a lot of fun. And when we got to the point we could reopen, we were thinking, oh, we'll stop doing the Stir Crazies, but everybody said, no, keep them coming. So on our website, you'll see an archive of past exhibitions, but also if you email visions@visionsartmuseum.org and get on our mailing list, you'll start receiving them in the mail. There's absolutely no obligation if you want to be on our mailing list. Just happy to have you if you're interested in hearing about more about what we're doing at Visions. And that's the end of my presentation. So Melissa, should I stop the screen share?
Yep.
Great. And then I can get into the chat. And
well, a couple of questions that came to mind.
Yes.
A couple of questions that came to mind as you were, just kind of giving us that background. 10 exhibitions sounds like an awful lot for any given year. So when you're changing your exhibitions over, are you changing all of them at the same time? Do you stagger them? I mean, kind of what's your idea and your process behind how your exhibitions work? And where do you come up with the ideas for them?
Yeah, it is staggering. And one change that we've made of late is that going into late 2022, 2023, we're going to be having 3 exhibition cycles a year rather than 4. Right now we move quarterly with a larger, mid-size, and smaller exhibition that in the past have all rotated at once. And it meant that the museum was basically closed for 10 days during deinstallation and reinstallation. And that's not optimal. So we've moved to more of a staggering model. And then looking ahead, we're moving to letting each exhibition be up in effect 2 weeks longer than it would be right now. Because certainly in a news cycle, it was a blink and you miss it length of exhibition. But then even for people who live locally, to get down, if they're, if they're in Orange County or LA, getting down to San Diego is actually not easy. If you've ever driven in Southern California traffic, you got to time it right. And so we decided that the kindness to our visitors and to our artists would be to have fewer exhibitions in a year, but have them be longer. And I have to say, from the staff point of view, we're looking forward to it, because this can be tough. Now, in terms of the ideas, though, there's no end of fabulous ideas and no end of wonderful exhibitions to show. So there's never a problem figuring out what to put into the gallery, and we are scheduled about 3 years out. But I am glad that we've made the decision to mount fewer in a year, and I'm glad we've moved to a practice of staggering.
And it looks like at least the exhibitions that you have now, with the exception maybe of the surfboards, are really focused on individual artists. So is that the focus, or does that just happen to be the current exhibitions that you have?
Yeah, right now, if COVID had not happened, the main show in the museum would have been the group show, Quilt Visions. And the thematic approach would have been, it's biennial, it's, juried, so kind of best of the best theme. The full deck is a group show as well. But I'd say, no, it's a mix. It's a mix. The smaller spaces are conducive to solo shows, but the exhibition, a year ago this time, the exhibition in our larger gallery was, no, actually I'm saying it was Ruth McDowell's works. So yeah, it is largely a featured artist sort of approach, yes. Looking to 2023, we're going to be doing our first ever Latinx exhibition that will be thematic on style and history and technique. So looking forward to that. But yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. It has been featured artists, yeah.
And then are some of those, some of them obviously are recognizable names. Are some of them ones that are coming from the juried show? Ones that you're spotting there initially and then encouraging or working with from there?
Yes, definitely. And then we also have an overlay of decision-making that involves, accessibility for programs, accessibility for ancillary or contextual materials, that sort of thing. So not just a significance as an artist, but how we can then express relevance to a larger community.
And then are the classes and workshops that you're doing, are those taking place inside the gallery space? It looked like the children's program, that elementary school program was. Do all of your programs take place in the galleries?
Not all of them, but with the children, we felt it was really important to have that going on in the gallery so that they were in art as they were making art. And it was also a lot of fun for when visitors came through, that they'd be walking amongst these children making the art. It really enhanced the experience. Sometimes the kids came before the museums officially opened, and so that was easier, but not as much fun. And then museum traditionally has been closed on Mondays. And so we've offered, if the class is small enough, we've offered it at the museum on the day that we're closed. But then we also have quite a few partner organizations in San Diego with larger workshop spaces, and in particular spaces with water. We don't have a wet art area in our museum per se. So if it involves water, we tend to look to neighbors to host the classes.
So how does that work then? You're doing the class, they're providing the space, but the classes that are done and booked through you directly?
Yes. Yeah, there are quite a few sewing and quilt stores near us that have classroom space that they're willing to share with us, or that we rent at a very nominal basis. And then often they'll help advertise the class for us as well. But yeah, we're contracting for the space outside the museum.
And then what staff do you have aside from you?
I have a wonderful team.
Full-time or part-time too. So
yeah, no, I have a wonderful team and I'm extremely grateful. It's me and then a wonderful woman named Vanessa who does communications and membership and kind of really operating in general. And then we have a person she's full-time, and then we have another full-time person who splits her time between our store and curatorial. And more recently with the store closed, she's been pivoting towards educational programming, which has been great. We have a part-time person who does web and digital. And then, we have, I'm sure like you, we've got tech, we've got tech on demand, or, ancillary tech, and we've got a bookkeeper. But it's 4 to 5 FTE.
and then obviously we saw you've got some really wonderful and engaged volunteers. What's your volunteer base like? I mean, you mentioned how you got this entirely new group that started to engage with you based on some of the programming that you were doing. But, speaking from our perspective, we are really heavily dependent on our amazing and incredible volunteers. We wouldn't be able to function without them. So I assume you're probably in a similar situation.
We are. We have about 100 to 120 volunteers who at least pre-pandemic, were our regulars, who do everything from operate the front desk, the visitor desk as people come through, who help with the classes, and help with behind the scenes with the store, certainly. And even our curatorial process is led by a group of volunteers, about 5 to 7 on that committee, who assist with researching and identifying prospective artists, and thinking about big picture, about what a year would look like, and assisting staff. So often in a museum, there's a curator who has, quite a bit of personal, can put her or his personal stamp on things. Our curatorial process is more like a Quaker meeting, where we've got a group of wonderful, extremely well-informed, highly skilled volunteers who know what they're on about. And that's grateful. I'm grateful for that because, as I've mentioned to you before, Melissa, not a quilter. And my art is writing, not the visual arts. So I am blessedly beholden to them. And we're an all volunteer board, 12 board members, all volunteer, and it wouldn't happen without them. And it's the main reason I took the job. When I interviewed for this job 2 years ago now, and I met this extraordinary group of women running this museum, I thought, that's where I want to be.
Nice to actually find a match. I felt very similar. I've been here now for a little over 8 years, but that very similar sort of thing where it's like, wow, this is a place you want to be a part of.
Yes.
And something that you want to actually be doing and be working with.
Yeah. And in the midst of a pandemic, I mean, Melissa, we both says we're both so fortunate to be in these places in the midst of a pandemic, because I just feel the whole ethos of our museum is can do, and is positive and flexible, and understands the role of art to heal and to bridge and to elevate and restore. It's just it's a stressful time to be at a museum, but it's an exciting time to be at a museum.
And I mean, for most of the people who are familiar with us know about our quarantine quilt project that we launched at the beginning of the pandemic, in the middle of March, or the beginning of the pandemic here in the United States, that just kind of grew and grew and grew. And we have blocks, from California, from Wisconsin, from, tons of other states and in between. You mentioned the Stir Crazy project that you guys had launched, that the museum had launched. Are there other things that you did, especially with the uncertainty of kind of opening, closing, shutdowns and things like that? Are there other projects that you launched in response to the pandemic and what's going on right now?
Yeah, I just put our website link into the chat, and I'm not looking at it, so I'm pretty sure it's events and classes, and you do the drop down, and then you'll see what's on today. And also if you go through resources and you'll find the Stir Crazy. This Stir Crazy was, we did every week for a good 20 weeks. and for 16 to 18 weeks maybe. And that was our really big kind of drumbeat push of what are we going to do to stay connected to our audiences and serve our audiences on a regular basis. But in order to even just get to that, we actually had to reconceptualize our entire digital footprint. Coming out of our strategic planning process in 2019, one of the core parts of that was that we need to expand and make more sophisticated our digital footprint. And I got to tell you honestly, as the director of the museum, there's just so many things to do. And I'd always look at that part of the strategic plan and think, yeah, well, when are we going to get to that? And then all of a sudden, March 16th happened, and it was the only relevant part of the strategic, or not the only, it was the most relevant part of the strategic plan. And because I am blessed with staff members who are younger and more technically savvy than I am, I just said to them, okay, guys, what are we going to do? And we were closed on March 16th. We had an exhibition opening scheduled for April 18th. And somehow in a month, because we're crazy, we just said, you know what, we're going to pivot the entire thing. We're going to have an online exhibition. We're going to have a virtual opening. We're just going to, yeah, we're going to do it. And I'm not sure, I wouldn't do it that way again. Our most recent one, we did differently, but we quintupled our website engagement. Our website visits for that day of that opening were 5 times higher than any previous high point we had had. And we looked at that and we said, you know, we've been missing the boat. And we also looked at our analytics and saw that we had people coming from all over the world, which was just beyond what we had really thought of as our appeal. And so it's the COVID, I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but it's been a game changer for us in a positive way to think about how we fundamentally offer our programs and offer the art and connect with people. So it's been very exciting. So Stir Crazy was then kind of that drumbeat week by week, but it's just been a matter of adding things over time of different types of engagement online.
It sounds, again, you know, you and I, previous to the actual presentation, had talked numerous times, a couple of times, about kind of the parallel structure or the parallel paths that our 2 organizations have taken. And, you know, I think about the projects and the programs that we've launched in response to the pandemic too. So like I said, that one, which again, it was Devin, our education collections manager, an idea that she pitched in the last couple of minutes of a staff meeting to us wanting to do and try to do programs like this. And the response, like you found, the response that we found to things like this was overwhelming, and it was worldwide. And we started having people that were tuning in from, you know, posting in the chat saying, you know, I'm here from Italy, I'm here from Ireland, realizing that there was this huge crowd. And like you, we had a lot of things that were kind of on our agenda that we wanted to do, and on the plan that we wanted to do, that this, you know, like you, didn't want, would not have wanted it to happen the way that it did, but we were able to use that and do things in a different way and be able to engage with people in a different way. And I know from our perspective, we intend to continue doing that into 2021, into 2022. So like programs like this, being able to do these things, it allows us to do more and to be able to offer more things to that wider and broader audience. So it's just interesting to see how, you know, we're all kind of figuring this out as we go. And, you know, kind of going from there. So you mentioned you've got an amazing board. We're lucky to have an incredible board as well. They are kind of the backbone too for us of you know, they're helpers. They're not just ones that sit, they're helpers for us too. Are they local for you? Do they come from further afield? You know, are they all in this greater San Diego area?
Yeah, at present, our board is all in the greater San Diego area and encompasses a variety of professional backgrounds, not all artists, some artists, some teachers of art, but then also professions as well. And one of the things that we're understanding in this day and age is that as we look to, some members are going to be retiring, and, you know, board succession planning is always really important, is that we don't have to look just locally for our board members. We do have to consider, the state of California has peculiar laws about voting and in-person voting versus digital voting. And some of that's been relaxed now. So the board is able to take a vote on Zoom, but that's not necessarily always allowed. So we do have some limitations in terms of how our board can be constituted. But it's just opened up a lot of possibilities, certainly. But yeah, at present, the board is local. You know, when you were talking, one of the things that I was thinking about is, you know, lots of things have gone well. I'm grateful for that. But one idea that I was super excited about that just didn't go anywhere was we went with the idea of stir crazy, which is great. But what I was also thinking was cabin fever and log cabin fever. And I had this hope that a lot of people would do individual squares, log cabin squares that we could somehow put on Instagram and create an enormous log cabin quilt on Instagram of different things, but nobody thought that was a good idea. So if your fine folks decide that would be fun, I really want to see it. But I thought cabin fever just made a lot of sense to me, but maybe that hit too close to home, where stir crazy had more energy to it.
I have to kind of laugh at that. Well, we ended up with 27 quarantine quilts. So, you know, with that project, we were hoping for one, we ended up with 27 and counting. A lot of the initial blocks that came in were log cabins. Yeah. So, I mean, we gave no rules, no restrictions on what people were required to do, but a lot of those initial blocks were log cabin. And I remember Devin, Emily, and I, the three staff, actually just kind of chatting and laughing. It's like, yeah, we think there is cabin fever. That's definitely where people are. But we did not put them into a single quilt. So they're interspersed amongst all of the quilts that were part of that project.
Well, I think it's, you know, I'm new, and I'm still relatively new, still getting to know my own audience, my own demographic. And most of the people who are most of the artists engaged with Visions Art Museum are art quilters. They do not do pattern quilts, or if they do, they look really different. And so maybe it just wasn't the thing that was the thing that was going to capture the imagination. But on that same theme, and we may have talked about this before, I can't recall, is that I heard a really powerful presentation early on in this pandemic about how to not just survive, but to really thrive. And the speaker really stressed staying true to your culture and whatever you do. So as you take things online, you just be yourself. And that gave me a lot of freedom as someone who wasn't, you know, a Zoom expert, still isn't a Zoom expert, and has my two dogs walking by, and one may bark, I apologize. But just, you know, just embracing it for what it is. And I have enjoyed how casual some of our programs have been, and how just open and flexible they have been. And it's taken some of the pressure off in a way.
I think the ones, even just being able to chat back and forth and having that conversation, otherwise we would always joke and say, otherwise it feels like you're just talking into the void, and you know that there are people there, and you know there are people listening, but it feels really weird.
Yes.
So it's a lot more natural to have somebody to be able to just chat with and have a conversation with.
Well, and I've turned on the participants just so I can not talk so much in the void. So I have to say hello to everybody. It's nice to see your names there. And it'll be even nicer to see you in San Diego sometime if you can come, and I'll be able to shake your hand again.
And one final question as we're nearing the end of our time. So you mentioned the One Education program. How do you guys develop the education programs that you have? So
we have an education and outreach committee that is comprised of, well, one former elementary school art teacher, so that's great. A couple of people who teach quilting to adults. Someone who was at the San Diego Zoo and has a strong sense of, her day job was at the San Diego Zoo, has a strong sense of public relations and all of that. So, and then one professor from Mesa College who's fashion and design. And then as a staff, we're constantly scanning to see what others are doing, to see if there's a riff on that would make sense for us. But we've got kind of a brain trust that's putting things together. And then interestingly, since, you know, we've been at this for 7 months now, people are now starting to come to us and say, I do this, you know, would you like would you like to offer this through Visions Art Museum? And that's been a lot of fun too. How about you?
We too have an education committee. We do have a full-time education and collections manager who is the chair of that committee, and who assists with that. We have some that will come to us just pitching ideas, but in a lot of cases it's that committee trying to seek out things. We will also try to tie, if it's possible, to tie some of the things to a specific exhibition. But a lot of our exhibitions are group. So we have some that are retrospectives or focused on individual artists, but a lot of them are group shows. And so being able to tie into or try to bring some of them in to do something, either whether it's programmatic or presentation or something like that. But it really depends is probably the best way to put it. And we do a lot of classes and workshops. We average somewhere, I think it's about 40-ish per year. So, and that's like organized, like registered programs and classes. And that was one of the things that was nice about having some of those existing relationships as we started doing and moving things virtually. Some of those are artists that we'd worked with in the past, or some of the ones that we were tapping to talk to and see if they'd be willing to do something like this and do some of the virtual programming for us and with us too. And I know some of the things that we're thinking about for 2021, some of the virtual programs that we're thinking about for 2021 are actually based on some of the exhibitions that we have coming up in 2021 too. Yeah. So, but like I said, I mean, it's like you, it's having that group that can actually provide ideas and feedback and suggestions. Just knowing, having multiple people that know what's going on out there and are seeing the different things that are going out there. I mean, having those sorts of multiple perspectives really helps.
Yes, exactly.
Well, we are just about out of time. So any final thoughts, comments?
Oh, I'm just delighted to be here. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn about Visions. And it's great to always talk to you, Melissa. Really appreciate it. And anytime.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, we've been chatting with Laura McHale from Visions Art Museum in San Diego, and encourage you, we'll post a few of the links that you've posted in the chat. We'll post a few of those to our Facebook page. So don't worry if you missed it while we were chatting, we will get some of those links posted on our Facebook page as well. And thank you again so much for coming. Again, Laura was kind enough to do this at no charge for us, just so that we can keep these wonderful and fun programs going. We do appreciate any donations that help to support the museum. Both organizations would appreciate that. And thank you again.
Great.